Uh, failed to post the tweet. Post a tweet. Okay. Okay, we got a problem with Twitter. Close. Okay, I should be live again. Sorry about the delay. A little technical difficulty. As I was saying before, I get the weirdest crap happening with my electronics. They hate me. So, I will not try to move cameras around. I will just, well, what I can do is I can do this. Here, it's only one. Okay. Now then, for those of you who do not have access to a nice electric juicer, I'm going to be using that later when I start juicing a lot of oranges. It just goes quicker. Yeah, you're probably familiar with these things. Okay. They're okay. They're good. They will work. So I have my cranberries, as you saw earlier. I have my orange zest. I have my oranges, which I am juicing. That looks good. There's a little container on the bottom, obviously, because it's not running all over the cutting board. And so while I'm pressing down and twisting, I'm also squeezing the orange. So as I get all the pulp broken up and all the juice, as much juice as I can, out of this orange. That looks good. This, okay, so now I have I only got at least 3 tablespoons at least of orange juice. So I have my orange juice, I have my orange zest. This gizmo, if no one is familiar with it, is a pastry cutter. This is used for cutting butter into flour. Instead of using your hands, you can use your hands. But a lot of instances you don't want to use your hands because, cheers, or as they say in Scotland, if you're drinking scotch, slàinte. I do speak a little bit of Gaelic, not much, a few words, a couple of phrases. Maybe go into that later, but probably not. Okay, I'm into all things Scottish, so obviously I'm trying to pick up as many Gaelic words as possible, understand the language. You can get a better understanding for the people. And probably most of the Scots in Scotland would disagree with me because most of them don't speak Gaelic. So I have my recipe. So now I need to actually grate my butter. It works really well grating it. It gets it into a really fine, small pieces. You can dice it. If you were going to dice it, I would suggest you dice it before you freeze it. And as I have learned, the trick to making a good scone is that you want the dough to be as cold as possible. So, there we go. So, freezing the butter, that's about as cold as you can get. Grating it is a real bit of a hassle. I'm going to go with a larger. Well, see that this is probably not going to work because this is going to break. So what I may have to do is just, which I will do, and it tends to stick everywhere. So I will go with the refrigerated butter that I just happen to have obviously in my refrigerator. Because this I don't trust, it's cracked, it's going to break. Because of the amount of pressure I got to put on it, I'm really going to have to buy a new grater. So this is trash. So yeah, something breaks. If it can be repaired to the point that it's going to be safe to use, hey, by all means, get it repaired. If it's not, it's like that, and that was something that I just acquired from several households that I had to put together when I got married. Because I had all my own stuff, and had been living on my own since I was 18. Except for a few years when I was going to college. I lived at home in my dad's house, my dad and my stepmom. They thought that they could, oh, you're going to be there so you can watch. They were taking care of my nieces at the time, and so, oh yeah, live in babysit. Yeah, no, sorry. Don't assume. But hey, that's water under the bridge, and so I always try to keep butter on hand. So now I have it's at refrigerator temperature, which is 34, 35-ish. So it's pretty cold. It's pretty solid. You want to keep it cold and as cold as possible. So once I get done, so I'm just going to dice this. I'm not going to try to grate it. I'm just going to dice it. Now you can use the paper. The pieces should all be about the same size, but it's not. Hugely critical because you're going to work this, but you want to keep, as I said, you want to keep the scone dough as cold as possible. You can see how sharp my knife is, and I'm just cutting through the butter, and I've cut through the paper. One trick you can use on these papers, if you don't cut on top of them, so if they're all cut up, you can take them, fold them in half so that the side next to the butter is like this, then put them in a Ziploc bag and throw them in the freezer. These are nice for buttering a pan. If you have to butter a cake pan, you can pull some of these out. Being that they're really thin, they'll fall really quickly, and you'll be able to pretty much butter, because there's this one's not too, a lot of times they're a lot more greasy from the butter. This one is not. I'm not sure why, but again, just rinse off my hands real quick. Oh, there's my towel. So, ooh, oh man, yeah, I'm getting all kinds of silly things going on YouTube. You're not live on YouTube. Yeah, I know. My nose is running all over the place again. It's cold. It's been getting colder, so you know. Okay, butter. Let's stick it in the freezer. Probably won't be in there long enough to get totally rock hard frozen, but okay, so I've got everything I think I need. So let's put together the thing. Well, we want to whisk the flour. Okay, a bowl. There we go. You want a good sized bowl to work with. Scone dough is not like a lot of doughs. It's going to be fairly dry. Now, what I need is flour. Look at, there's my stool. I have flour here and I have flour here. Okay. Also, I shop at Costco quite a bit. I bought a 25-pound bag of all-purpose flour at Costco. Okay, so, yay! So I have lots of flour. So I can do lots of baking. Now what I need is, and this is where having a dry, several dry sets of dry measuring cups. Okay, dry measure is different than a liquid measure. Now, okay. This thing is saying that it needs to be spooned. I don't know why they say spoon, but okay. You can find all kinds of scone recipes. In almost any cookbook will have at least one scone recipe. Possibly they want you to spoon this because it's less messy. Okay, so I'm going to start working with flour. And it doesn't say packed, it just says leveled. So I'm not going to overly pack this. A lot of recipes will say pack it. And then have you sift it. Pastry cutter or bench scraper works really nice for leveling these things off. Okay, let me get my apron. Because typically when I start working with flour, I get it everywhere. Okay, so this is just a white apron. As you can see by the logo, California Culinary Academy. Okay, yeah, that's the school that I went to. I'll put it around me. And although I have put on a little bit of weight, I'm still not so big that I can't wrap the tie of the apron around my waist. Okay, so we want 2 cups all-purpose flour, spooned and leveled. So that's what we're doing. And I do have the recipe right here in front of me. I've never used this recipe before, and when I do a new recipe, if it's not one of my own making or creation, and I have created several of my own recipes, then I keep the recipe handy and refer to it. It's just so that I don't forget anything. Okay, so that's the flour. Now it says plus more for hands and work surface. So I have a little bit left in my bag. This container was not big enough. So that's what I'll use for my hands. The idea is to dust your hands with flour so that the dough doesn't stick to your hands when you work it. But you don't want to overwork your scone dough, because that'll just make it tough. A third, I got lots of third cups. I don't seem to have a half cup. dry measure. But what's this? This is a 2/3 cup. That's a 1/3 cup. Okay, so I will use my. Well, there's markings on the inside of most of these. If you have to go out and buy some, find ones that have markings on the inside, so that you can, and it's on the outside as well, so you can figure out that's what happened to my spoon. The spoon that I used to stir my tea with. It fell down. So what I need is a 1/2 cup of sugar. Okay, so now I know where the 1/2 cup mark is. I can see it on the inside as well. So it makes it easier to measure if you can. Okay, 1/2 cup of sugar. Add. Okay, so cup granulated sugar. A couple of notes. If you have an English cookbook, let me go get it. I do have one. I have several cookbooks, and a lot of them, the measurements are a little weird. Where am I? Oh, I'll be right back. Yeah, there. Just chatting. Okay. Still don't have any viewers, but that's okay. I don't mind. I've been told I should expect to be a little slow, and obviously the more I stream, the more I'll get out there. Now, as I was saying, cookbooks printed in England will use, if they don't use metric, they're going to be using the imperial measurements, which are slightly different. You'd have to look up and do conversions on them. Hopefully they will give it in metric and or standard US. This cookbook I got as a gift quite a few Christmases ago. I'm going to step out of the camera and put the cookbook down. From my brother-in-law, as I've said previously, older brother and his wife. They're still living in England, and my brother-in-law is from England, was raised. So, and they found out I like cooking, they sent that to me. That was really nice of them. I appreciate getting cookbooks. I have several other cookbooks, all dealing with Renaissance or near Renaissance period cooking. Those recipes are really, really strange because there was no set measurements at the time period, so you gotta kind of play with them a little bit and try them out. I've done a few of those. They came out really nice, but they have some fairly odd ingredients that are kind of hard to find, like rose water and stuff like that. Rose water can be found in a really good stocked grocery store, but it's not something your average grocery store is going to carry. Okay, so next thing on the list, what do I have to do? Okay, so I add orange zest, so I want flour, sugar, baking powder, salt, orange zest. Okay, baking powder. Hey, my baking powder. Oh, there's the baking powder. Okay, there we go. Now, don't make the mistake of, you can get self-rising flour, which has baking powder and usually a little bit of salt already mixed into it. But don't mistake baking soda for baking powder. Those of you who bake know the difference, and you'll know what I mean. Those who are just starting out baking, you don't want to get them mixed up. Now, if you read the ingredients of baking powder, which I know a lot of people don't read ingredient labels. Where's the ingredients? Cornstarch, sodium bicarbonate, sodium alum, sulfate, monocalcium, alum sulfate, and monocalcium phosphate. Blah, 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 blah. A lot of you may have trouble pronouncing some of those words. Having a background in the medical field has always helped me with that, but I can usually work it out. Close enough, at any rate. So, but essentially baking powder is baking soda and cream of tartar. If you're using baking soda, you have to have an acid ingredient in order to activate this. Baking powder has all that already in it, in the proper proportion, so it's just simpler. But you will come across some recipes that will call for baking soda and cream of tartar. Just follow the recipe, that's all I can tell you. Okay, so what do I got here? Okay, baking powder, 2.5. Is that teaspoons or tablespoons? Teaspoons. Okay, 1 teaspoon. Sometimes these are hard. These are from my camping gear, but I haven't been camping in years. That's 1. Most of these tins, they have the lid set up so that you can level off. If it doesn't say heaped or rounded teaspoon, tablespoon, then level it off. If you're working with brown sugar, it'll usually say packed, which is packed tight and then leveled off. Okay, so that's 2.5 teaspoons of baking powder and orange zest. Okay, that's, like I said, I was going to prep all this ahead so that all I had to do was pull the scones out, do the last little bit of wash on top of the scones, maybe a little sugar, or do the icing. I'm probably going to do the icing. Let me put my baking powder back. And then when you're doing icing, in your icing scones, you don't want to put the icing on before they bake. So you could brush it with a little cream. Egg wash will work also. And then I'll there's my whisk. I have several whisks. Most of them are in my kit for work. So, okay, whisk, flour, sugar, baking powder. Oh, I didn't add salt. Oh, bad me. Salt. Okay, so I need salt. These little jelly jars. It has a slot for a spoon. How much salt do I need? 1/2 teaspoon of salt. Okay. Now, my butter has salt in it already. But I'm going to go with I will go with that. I have found that for the most part there's not a lot of difference. A half teaspoon of salt extra was not going to really make these very salty. If you're really concerned, go ahead and get the salted butter, unsalted butter. Like I said, I've been doing this sort of thing for a long time, so you can get some butters that are really, really salty. If that's the case in your area and the butter that you get or you have on hand is really salty, if you're not sure, just take a small piece of it and taste it. I don't know, yeah, eating butter is like, you know, not really the greatest thing in the world, but it will give you an idea how much salt there is. If there's a lot of salt in it, you'll be able to taste it. If there's not a lot of salt, and you're probably okay using salted butter. But like I said, if you're overly concerned about your salt consumption, which some people are, use unsalted butter. I would not recommend substituting margarine for butter in recipes that call for butter. Most of them will work, but it's kind of touchy, and some recipes require that you use butter. It's like if you're actually crazy enough to try and make like puff pastry or not scones, but croissant dough at home, you don't want to substitute margarine for the butter. Okay, so the butter will give a lot of moisture and provide steam and whatnot, so you want the butter to remain cold. That's why you want this. Okay, so now that I need to put my butter in, blah blah, mix together. In a large bowl, grate the frozen butter using a box grater. Add it to the flour mixture, combine with a pastry cutter. Okay, so I have a pastry cutter. Now, you can grate it. Grating it makes it go quicker. As I said, my grater was not great. I need to go out and actually buy a box cutter. I don't have one. Or, as I like to refer to them as a knuckle buster. Because invariably I end up grating my knuckles if I'm not really, really careful. So, this is now really firm and really cold butter, which is what you want. It's been diced, so it's going to be a little bit of work to work this in. Okay, so pastry cutter. And basically this is all you do. Let's see what I'm doing here. I'm cutting the butter into the flour. And you want the butter in really small chunks, little pieces. That's why grating it works out so well. The idea is to have the flour coating every little piece of butter. And you can turn your bowl. That's why you want a reasonably sized bowl. My refrigerator is pretty cold, so I probably didn't need to put this into. Yeah. And as you can see, that flour wants to go everywhere. Okay, let me get into my... that's what I'm after. I got a small cutting board that's got a bunch of stuff on it. Out of sight of the camera, and it's... So don't want to handle the butter keep from handling it as much as possible. Well, this is dough blender for to blend flour, shortening, blah blah blah. You can use it for butter as well. A lot of recipes will call for shortening. Crisco, vegetable shortening, solid shortening. You know, the old standby from my parents' day, and probably yours. Now, as we work this, the butter will get coated, and work it into smaller and smaller pieces. So I want to move it around, and this takes a few minutes, probably 5-10 minutes. As the butter warms up, it'll go a little quicker, but I don't want to get the butter too warm. I still want it pretty cold. Because like I said, the butter is what will provide you with nice moist scones. They won't dry out in the baking process. They also won't spread as much. So that's why you want to keep the dough cold as well. Once the dough is made, you want to put it back in the fridge and let it rest for a little bit, because you want these, like I said, you can use 2 forks for this. It's kind of tedious. You can also use your hands, but you want the consistency of breadcrumbs. I've heard them called breadcrumb consistency. Consistency of sand. You're really working with really small bits of butter. You won't have. You don't want big honking chunks of butter. That's why you need to work it. This working of your dough process, you really can't overwork it, because you're not really making the dough. You're just working the butter into the flour. So really not going to affect. I'm going to get my hands into this, and this is what you do. You just kind of mash it around. My hands are really warm, always have been, so like I said, usually when I'm working with flour, if I don't put an apron on, and I'm not extremely careful, when I was working as a baker, which I have done, I have whites, white chef's jackets, as you saw the one earlier. I was wearing one of my nice white jackets. I have some other not so nice white jackets, just for everyday use and wear, and I bought some white chef's pants. The reason for the white chef's pants, typically the houndstooth ones, those gray and white checked kind of looking chef's pants, that pattern is used because it helps hide any stains or spills on the pants. Now, granted, if you're wearing an apron, you'll get a lot less stains and spills on your pants, but it happens, you know. And so they try to hide it. Some places like you to give you the choice of, personal choice as to what kind of chef's pants you want to wear. They make them in denim and all different colors, that sort of thing. Last place I worked before the shutdown, everybody wore black pants. And we had black chef's jackets. Since I had an embroidery machine, we also had to wear a name tag. So it's like, well, I don't like name tags. Keep a minimum of stuff pinned or clipped to your jacket. because it could get knocked off and end up in whatever you're cooking. Not really a good way to go. So, and then like I said, since I do have an embroidery machine, I brought all my chef's jackets home and embroidered my name on all my jackets. So I never had to worry about whether or not I had a name tag. And nobody seemed to care. So if your company is providing you with your jackets, you want to make sure that that's okay if you do that. A lot of times you don't turn the jackets back in when you leave the company unless you've just started and you're leaving. Okay, so this is getting to the point where it should be. Should work it a little more. It's not clogging up the pastry cutter. That's why I use my hands to break it up a little more. So this is kind of the consistency you want. Some pieces may be a little bit big still, but it's working. And you see this takes a while. And I'm doing all this and I haven't had breakfast yet either. So I was hoping to have everything ready to go in the oven. Okay, so that's knocking out of my pastry cutter really nicely. It's not sticking, big blobs of butter sticking in the pastry cutter. So that's kind of what you want. Yeah, that's a good consistency. So I don't know if you can really see that well. My teacup is in the way, but this is kind of what you want. I do wish I had another camera that was pointing down that you could actually see what was happening, but the threads on that just don't seem to match up with the threads on my holder. So okay, so there we have that. Now pastry cutter, and of course I'm going to wash that. Now then, okay, orange just on the butter. Now then, pea-sized crumbs. Mine may be a little smaller than pea-size, but hey, close enough. Recipes will say pea-size, they'll say sand, they'll say breadcrumbs. It's all about the same. Okay, so now what I'm going to do, I'm going to take this and pop it in the fridge. Okay, there we go. And I'm going to take a quick break here. I will be right back. I need to take care of something. I am back. Okay. Still no followers. It's Saturday morning. You know, I've had a couple of followers. People follow me, friends from the Renaissance Fair. They have liked what I've done so far, and so far the feedback I've gotten has been good. So, well, I may still need that, so I won't set that in the sink. Okay. I probably won't need this knife again, so I can put that in the sink. And so I've got to empty my dishwasher. It's got full of clean dishes. I have a little magnetic thing here for, there you go, dirty dishes. Ahoy, clean dishes. It's kind of nice. My late wife picked that up, and so it makes it nice if you're not sure. There's the little light on the thing says clean dishes, so it's pretty obvious that the dishes are clean. But when you're loading it, if you're not running it, if you're waiting to run it until it's full, it's nice to know that the dishes that are in there are dirty, without having to open and look. Okay, so now, so I need to whisk together, it says a half cup heavy cream, the egg and vanilla extract in a small bowl. Okay, well, first of all I need vanilla extract. Where's my vanilla? Yes. Ah, there's my vanilla. Okay, if you have vanilla extract, great. I get this stuff whenever I can. This is made by a company called Watkins. It's very good. Okay, if you have someone who has a problem with alcohol, not necessarily alcoholic, but though you want to watch that. This is a low alcohol vanilla extract, which is nice. I've known I have a friend's wife. They are no longer in the area. They moved up to Washington, I believe, state. His wife has a problem with alcohol. So whatever you make, you can't put alcohol in it if you're making something for her that she's going to eat. So just so you know. We also have a friend, also from the Renaissance Fair, that was a problem with chicken. She was allergic to chicken, so you have to be careful. I had one lady one time tell me she was allergic to lettuce, which made no sense to me because lettuce is like 99% water. So what can she be allergic to? But when you're in a professional kitchen, you don't question these things. The person says, oh, I'm allergic to this. I can't have this. I can't have that. You take them at their word and say, okay, fine. So if someone says, oh, well, I don't want if a dish comes with onions in it. I'm allergic to onions. Okay. Then it's a good chance she's allergic to leeks, scallions, which are green onions, garlic, which is in the onion family, anything in the alum family you want to avoid because they're more than likely going to have a problem with it. Gluten intolerance is a big thing now. Oh, I can't have any gluten. A lot of times there is an actual medical condition. It's called celiac disease, and they cannot handle, digest, or process gluten, which is, as I said before, the protein in flour, in most of your grain flours or grains, that will give the flour or the bread that you're making with the flour structure. It gives it structure. So if they have a problem with gluten, then you want to avoid obviously wheat flour, whole, or because all-purpose flour is just wheat flour that's had the husk taken off and just the interior portion of the grain. Whole wheat flour is the husk and everything, that's why it's brown. Any of your pastry flours, your bread flours, they're all going to have varying degrees of gluten. Bread flour typically has the most because you're making bread with it, and you want the bread to have a nice firm texture. All-purpose is kind of middle of the road. Pastry flour has less, so between pastry flour and bread flour, you have all-purpose flour. So that's why all-purpose flour is, if it says like bread flour, like a lot of the recipes for my bread machine says bread flour. Use 2 cups, 4 cups, 5 cups, 6 cups, whatever, of bread flour. Well, I don't have bread flour. I haven't been able to find bread flour, so I use all-purpose. It's a good choice. You wouldn't want to use pastry flour, and God knows, I've looked for pastry flour in grocery stores, and I can't find it in any grocery store. So that's something that you're only going to come across probably in a professional kitchen that does pastry work. If they don't do pastry, they buy their pastries from another company, then obviously they're not going to have pastry flour handy, or not a large supply of it anyways. So what I need is a mixing bowl. I'm not going to go through that routine. Okay, I have a big measuring cup. It's a 2-quart measuring cup. It's really big. I'm not going to worry about that because it's dirty. Well, I'm just going to get a regular mixing bowl. Okay, I have another mixing bowl. I have several. Now, this one I don't want to use, because as I see, it's an older one that I've had, and it's got a couple of little pinholes in it. If you're not sure, you can hold it up to a light, window, anything, and you will be able to see the pinholes. There's a couple of them. Yeah, so I don't really want to use this one because I'm putting liquid in it. This is fine for like doing the bread, the flour. This would have been fine for doing all that because it's not going to run out. But if you're working strictly with liquids, you don't really want to use one that has holes in it. So I keep it around just for that sort of thing, but I always check them. So that's something I want to use for that. So I got to figure something else out. Okay, so I have an assortment of liquid measuring cups, which is always handy. Okay, so I got a 2-cup measuring cup. That should work. I'm not going to be able to whisk it too well in there, but this is a really old school thing. Anybody see one of these? If you know what it is, I know what it is, okay? Go ahead and text me. Let's have fun with it, okay? If you know what that is, text me and let me know. Like I said, I know what it is and what its primary use is, but not a lot of people. If you come across this, like in your mother-in-law's kitchen or your mom's kitchen, and you're looking and go, what the hell is this thing? Okay, looks just like a coiled spring on a handle. Okay, there is a use for that. Typically, I'll tell you Well, I won't tell you what it's for. You tell me what it's for. So there's your homework for the day. Tell me what this goofy thing is. Okay. I don't have cream. I don't know if this is still. This was in my freezer. Okay, that's still good. And okay. Yeah. This was from the last batch of my clotted cream that I made. I separated it and put it a little bit into a container. This is from the clotted cream that I made recently. You can freeze this, just like you can freeze the clotted cream. Okay, so this is why I save it. I don't have any heavy cream. The recipe calls for heavy cream. Clotted cream is made from heavy cream, so this can be used in place of heavy cream. Okay, and I need a half a cup. And I almost got a half a cup there. That's about a quarter of a cup. So I got half of what I need already. Mix it up. Okay, half a cup of my cream. Now, I will probably end up, if I make more scones, I will do that. Okay, so I got a half a cup of cream. And then I need 1 large egg. So let's go in here, find my eggs. This is trash. I need to get rid of that. That's my clotted cream. I can go there, and now I can get at my egg. Okay. Oh, down there's 3 eggs. So I got eggs. An egg. 1 each egg. What is this all about? Oh, that's my yeast. Okay, yeah. Okay. One whole egg. Okay. Next step, vanilla, 1 teaspoon. Okay, so I got 1 teaspoon of vanilla extract. Okay. I will probably still need those, so. Oh my god, I'm going to bust. Unfortunately, I'm going to have to take another quick break. Sorry about that for the interruptions, but as I say, when nature calls, nature calls. There's not a lot you can do about it. Okay, so tie this back on. I'm still working with the flour. Okay, so I can put my vanilla extract away. Now, what I was doing, well, you don't even know what I was doing. That's just nature calls. But I was mixing the wet ingredients together, and before I went off to take care of business, I looked at, okay, so whisk the cream, egg, vanilla extract together in a small bowl. Okay, so to give a little more orange flavor, I'm going to add a little bit of my orange juice. I should still have 2 to 3 tablespoons of... Okay, so there's my mixture. You guys are probably getting an idea of what this little gizmo is for. I'll pull my flour butter mixture out of the refrigerator. It's still nice and cold. That's what you want. Okay, so now and then my cranberries. Okay, so my chopped cranberries. Okay, so that's good. Now then, what I'm going to do is take a quick stir, kind of coat the cranberries a little bit. It's not strictly necessary because you're adding the liquid, but it's just so they don't clump. Coat them with flour, they won't clump. So if you're doing bread like you want to do cinnamon raisin bread and you're adding raisins, especially on a machine, you can dust your raisins with all, keep facing that way, and the camera's here. Sorry. If you're making like cinnamon raisin bread, where you're going to have like whole raisins mixed in with the bread dough, you want to dust your raisins, you want to break them up, and then you want to dust them with a light coating of flour, just all-purpose flour. That's fine. It's not going to hurt. It's not going to change the consistency of your bread dough, but what it will do is it will keep the raisins from clumping together, sticking together as they're mixed in. So do a better job of mixing. That's why I did the cranberries. Now I add my liquid. Now, a lot of places will say, oh, make a well in the middle and add it in, then mix it in. Okay, yeah, you can do that. But it's not hugely required. It's just the way these people made. And you can see that this is getting fairly thick and clumpy pretty quick, because there's not a lot of liquid in scone dough. It's not like a regular bread dough or biscuit dough. It's going to be, your dough for scones is going to be fairly dry once you get it mixed in. And that's what you want. It's going to be. Okay, now comes the part that you really, and now this is when you want to be careful and you don't want to overmix your dough. Okay, so I'm going to get rid of this. That's off my hand. Quick. Give it a good dry. And this is where the extra flour comes in. For your work surface and your hands. And my hand is still wet. So I need to make sure it gets good and dry. Otherwise, I'm going to have clumpy all over my hand. Now, paper towel works really well for this. I just need one small sheet of paper towel to get my hand good and dry. And if you don't like getting your fingers into everything, you can wear gloves. I don't have any gloves handy. So, I'm going to get my hands into it. And now then, switch into the bag over there. Get my hand a nice dusting. You don't want it sticking to your fingers. It's sticking to my fingers right now. And this is what you're trying to avoid. If you have to work this too much, your scones are going to be not as good. So, you can see that I'm not really working it too much. Now I added a little bit of extra liquid, a little bit of orange juice to my liquid. So I had a little more liquid than what the recipe actually called for. I didn't add a huge amount of extra. I can actually smell the orange. But so I'm probably going to need to add a little bit extra flour because this is a bit too sticky. So if you have to add a little extra flour, go lightly with it. You don't want to add too much extra. Just work this until it pretty much all comes together. Now, again, it's still pretty sticky. The cranberries have quite a bit of moisture in them. So, I'm going to move this off to the side. That's still fairly cold. Not as cold as I would like it. So I think I'm going to stick this back in and rinse off my hands and put this back into the refrigerator. Now, I can stick it in the freezer, it would chill it a lot quicker. So I'm just rinsing off my hands, so I'm not going to bother washing them with soap, but you can if you want. It's just cleaning them off. So let's. This really isn't going to fit in my freezer, and my refrigerator is pretty cold. As a matter of fact, I have to be careful where I place things in my refrigerator, because sometimes they freeze. Okay, so I'm going to take some flour. On my board. This is my work surface. My hands real well. So, there we go. Now then, this will help coat my hands as well. Okay, so I got a nice work area coated with flour. And as you can see, it's trying to go everywhere. Hence the apron. Like I said, when I was baking on a regular basis, it was, if I wore dark pants and a dark chef's jacket, it looked like by the time I finished a day, it looked like I'd been rolling around in the bin of flour. So I had flour everywhere. I was coated. Pants, all my shoes. Now, what you want is you want this This will work in a little extra flour. Also, you want this so it's not really hugely sticky. It's still a little bit sticky. I can probably get by. This means that these will probably be a lot moister. But now you got the idea. Okay, this is kind of what you want. You want it to come together. You don't want to overwork it. Okay, so now it's at the point where, okay, cranberry, pour onto the counter, blah, blah, blah. Flour seems too dry, add the heavy cream. Press into an 8-inch disc, and with a sharp knife or bench scraper cut into 8 wedges. Now, it says 8-inch. Okay. Now I can make large scones, or I can make small scones out of this. This recipe will make either 8 large scones or 16 smaller ones. Okay. This is really soft still. So what I'm going to want to do is I want to put this on something. Let me work it a little more. I don't want to overwork it. It's still, like I said, it's still got some sections that are kind of sticky and goopy. So work in a little more flour. And this comes just from experience. Okay. From working with doughs and bread and whatnot. So, although if you have a bread machine, you're really not having to do this, but I recommend that you actually go through the process of making bread by hand, at least once, so you can see how much work it is. It's quite a bit of work. Scones, you don't want to knead them. You can see, or at least I can see, little spots of butter, so that the butter is not melted. Not yet, anyways. So this is getting a little warm. Now I have a metal plate for my camping gear. This works well because it transfers the temperature really well. Okay. And I'm going to pop this into my freezer to chill. Kind of clean it. Just a little bit. Okay. I'll finish cleaning up once I'm completely done with this. Okay, so now another quick slurp. My tea's getting cold. Cutting board, as you can see, is probably not as clean as it could be, but it'll be okay. Now then, I'm going to make the glaze. Get it ready. But I can do that while it's baking. So I don't really need to do that right this second. What I want is, it says to form it into an 8-inch disc. Press into an 8-inch disc and bob. Okay, so what we're looking for is an 8-inch disc. Now, how do you get an 8-inch disc? Well, you can futz around with a tape measure or a ruler, and I've done all of that. But I found that there is really a very much quicker way, if I can find it. Okay, I don't see it handy, unfortunately. Now then, the trick that I typically use, and I don't know what happened to my 8-inch cake pan. So, I guess I'm going to be futzing around. Let me disappear real quick. I'm not going to put on the be right back screen. I'll get a tape measure. knocking off of all my stuff. That's really annoying. Okay, well, I can't seem to find my tape measure. I had one. I also can't seem to find my cake pan. Let me look. I have an assortment of pans, but I don't seem to be able to find the cake pan I'm looking for. It could be this mess of dirty dishes still, or it could just be buried somewhere. Let's see how big this is. This is actually more of a tart pan. What I'm trying to find out is whether or not it's a 10 by 1.5, looks like. Okay, so it's probably from there to there. So this is probably about 8 inches right here, the inner line. Okay. If it sloped a little bit, that's fine. I will deal with it. Now then, what I want to do is dust this lightly with a little bit of flour. Like I said, you make these a little bigger, make it more like 10 inches. Depends on how thick you want them. That's probably way more flour than I need. Like I said, lightly dusted. And it's just more to just keep the dough from, the scone dough from sticking too badly. I don't know why that's doing that. Okay. Making that funky noise. So now my oven's been preheating for quite a while, so it's already come up to temperature. And it's at 400 degrees, give or take. Like I said, my oven tends to run, I think, a little low. That's something that you need to be aware of. Okay, so now, that's probably about 8-inch disc. Okay. But what I found is that I discovered this when I was in culinary school, is that it's like, okay, you want 8-inch disc for scones. Well, we made scones. I mean, fruit and cream scones. So, element. Nice round of scone dough. I can kind of scrunch it a little bit. It uses another pan, but hey, you know. And then I can come in here with my hands and kind of scrunch it a little bit. I don't need to scrunch it too much. I just want to form it up so the sides are a little bit more. And this dough is, if you're not sure if the dough is cold, you can use the back of your hand. You'll be able to tell. It should be cold to the touch. Okay, so now it's just a matter of, and then you want to eyeball this. I like a good size scone, so I'm going to make 8 scones. And I want to try and divide it as evenly as possible, because the point is that you want them all to bake consistently and evenly. So one is really big and one is really small. Small one's going to bake quicker and overbake than the really big one. So if you pull them out when the small ones are done, you'll have small ones done perfectly and the big ones will be underdone. If you go the other way, the big ones will be done perfectly, but the little ones will be overdone. So you need to make them now I'm going to use a half sheet pan. Okay. This is about the biggest. I'm going to pull my drawer out. This is what I was talking about before. This is a silicone baking mat. You can find these pretty much anywhere. If you have a Bed Bath & Beyond close by, hey, they'll usually have them. But pretty much any really well-stocked store, you might be able to find them at Walmart. I don't know that they actually carry them, but you can always get them online too. Okay, so this dough is really, really soft. This makes these going to be very moist. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bake these. Put them on and you want to separate them. So it's going to go 4 and 4. So this one's a good size. This one I'm going to put towards the edge because now then. Now you want these, this dough is still really cold to the touch. That one should be a little bigger, but you know, this one's a little too big, this one's a little too small, but they're fairly close, so I'm not going to worry about it. Now, if you have room in your refrigerator or your freezer, pop these things back into the freezer, if you can. Now, it looks like, okay, it'll fit. It's at an angle, hopefully they won't shift. Shouldn't, but if they do, I just readjust them. I want to let those sit in there for a good, probably 10 to 15 minutes to get really, really cold. Like the colder the dough, the better your scone is going to come out. Because the butter's going to be nice and firm, and it's going to melt in the oven, obviously. And while that's doing that, I'm going to clean up. I need to clean it in the cutting board so that I can cut my oranges in order to make my orange juice. Now I have a little bit of orange juice there. That's for the glaze. I'm going to use an orange glaze. And the advantage of a bench scraper. Okay, now that dirty paper towel is getting to the point where it needs to be retired. Okay. Now I have a second bench scraper here as well, so I have 2 bench scrapers. I'm going to put those there. It makes it just easier where I can get at them. Okay, now I have an apron on. I can so what I want to do is I've got that set for 11 minutes. So that's what I use for cooked pasta. So I will sorry, cook my pasta. Just had butter in it. I'm going to rinse it out with some warm water. Dry. Having small bowls. I got some other small mixing bowls, but they're a little bit of a pain in the butt to get at. Like I said, I'm still trying to figure out how best to set up my kitchen for this live streaming stuff. One of the things I also seem to be missing is my bullet whisk. I don't know what I did with it. It's, oh, there it is. Okay. This is a bullet whisk because, quite frankly, that's what it looks like. It looks like a bullet. It's narrow and works really well for doing stuff like this. So that's for that. That's for my glaze. Okay. While the scones are baking, I can make the glaze. 10 o'clock. So with all the little oopses and blurps and breaks, it's... So let's clean up my board. Now we use paper towels to kind of dry it. You probably think, oh well, you're wasting too much paper. You're using it up. You're going to kill all the trees. Well, paper towels are nice to have on hand. And especially if you're working with like raw chicken, having a paper towel handy is always a good thing. Now then, what I need to do is I need to deal with my orange juice. I have to do orange juice today, so I'm going to have to do orange juice today. So let's unplug my juicer from over here where it is not visible. Okay, so now this is my juicer. It's a nice juicer. It works very well. I'm going to need to have a little more cord length, so I'm going to pull out some cord. I'll just pull it all out and I'll deal with that. So I have plenty of cord. So I'm going to put it as close to the outlet as I can. Okay, now then. Okay, so as you can probably see, let's adjust the camera a little bit. Okay, so now this is my juicer. Yeah, there's the juicing area. This is in the lid. It's supposed to be designed to, you put your orange in here and you push this down and it's supposed to cut it. It's a plastic blade. It's not really very sharp. I found that it really doesn't work that well. So I typically, also these gripping points here at the top, they don't really work that well either. So you can just pop this off. It won't hurt anything. It's not going to alter the functioning of the machine. I like using my hands. Now, I'm going to switch on the side. Let's turn it on. Trick is, if you push down on one of these, nothing happens. Push down on both of them, they spin. Okay, so that's how it works. You can do a whole orange at a time. Now then, like I said, this is my bag of oranges from my backyard. Okay? Now, when I said I have 2 orange trees, I meant I have 2 orange trees. So, I have access to a lot of oranges. I don't have to buy fresh orange juice in the store. I can spend a little bit of time when I have nothing better to do. And now I'm going to put my knife cutting edge up, but I'm going to put it in this little rack on the side where I have my computer, so that I'm not bumping it with my hand, so I'm not going to cut myself. Now then, what I need is I have a pitcher. Not a picture, but a pitcher. There is a difference. A picture is like what you see on your screen, a picture, obviously. This is a pitcher, and it has measurements on it. Metric pen looks like standard US 1.5 2 quarts. It's marked in quarts. Half quart. Looks like maybe a quarter of a quart. So, half of a quart, in case you don't remember from grade school. That was one of the most annoying questions I got when I was at the Culinary Academy. Now, I had been out of school. I was in my 40s, and I'd been out of high school and grade school for quite a number of years. Okay, so, and I get people who are younger than me asking, well, how many cups in a quart? It calls for a pint. Okay, how many cups are in a pint? Okay, and then look at them and I go, you're kidding, right? You know, this is stuff you learned in grade school. You should know this. 1 cup is obviously, in the U.S., 1 cup is 8 ounces. Now, set these on here. And it's a little noisy, not bad. And it does a really good job. Okay. And toss those in there. Okay. There's a catch basin on this. Let's see why I do. This with my hand. And there's a foot control, so I don't have to touch the trash can with my hand. Obviously, we're going to use the zest and the juice from the orange, or the inside. If you're not juicing them, you're going to want to zest these first. As a whole orange, it's much easier. So, I have lots of orange juice. I'll take the time to... Okay, so there's still parts of this that are not really juicing. So I squeeze it to get it a little better. Okay, that's good. Obviously, you don't want to cut into the pith too much because that will just make it bitter. If you've ever eaten a hunk of a white part of an orange, okay, that's pretty good. That's the pith. It's getting a little bit in there, but it should strain out easily. At this point, I'm going to take these out. I'm going to rinse them off so they don't plug up too much. A little hot water. Now my hot water heater is right over here behind the wall, and once the pipes get hot, because they come up from there and that through the overhead. That now has, I guess, the pipes cool down. I don't think they're well insulated. So it's something that is... Now then, I have finished my tea. It's gone. It's empty. Oh no! So, I don't need that. Let me get the glass, because I feel like having some orange juice. Now, the catch basin only holds a couple of cups. And before I take it out, there's a spout that it... So I tip it forward a little bit. Okay, so that's 5 minutes. No, that's 11 minutes. So let's give it... No, clear. I'll get another 5 minutes. Get that dough really good and cold. So, now I could just pour it out through the back end, but it has this little strainer built in. It doesn't work 100% of the time, It works pretty good, but it's not perfect. Now I could run this through a tea strainer. That seems a little bit excessive. I don't mind a little bit of pulp. Again, I'm going to rinse this out, but I'm not going to pour it to the straining bit. I'm trying to clean the straining bit. Okay, so, and that goes back in there. And now I have a glass of orange juice. And that's really good. I like it. These oranges are really good. They're nice. I gotta set up my watering system again. But while I'm doing that, I'm going to, well, I'm not going to do my watering system today. But if I can get a webcam working out in the backyard, which I kind of doubt, quite frankly, since I have 2 orange trees, I'm going to try and juice all of these today. So I'm going to have a pitcher that I can transfer the juice to as I go. Oh no! It fell down! Ugh! Okay, so a little bit of cold water. Quick rinse. And it should be okay. I'm just trying to get all the cat hair that runs around this whole house, because I have had 3 cats, but I now have 2 cats. And it's really... So I was going to grate some potato and do hash browns. Like I said, I haven't actually had breakfast yet. So what I'll do is what I usually do. Right now I don't have any room on the cutting board, so I won't do that just yet. Normally I just dice a potato. I will dice it. And then put it in the microwave on a plate, so it's a single layer of diced potatoes on a plate. Microwave safe plate, obviously. Not a metal plate. Normally microwaves just do not mix. Now if your oranges are really not really sweet, you can probably add a little bit of sugar. I wouldn't suggest adding honey. It's going to alter the flavor. But you can add a little bit of sugar. Ideally, I prefer to have simple syrup on hand and add a little bit of simple syrup to it. It's not necessary. Most oranges and orange juice are fairly sweet. But they can, depending on how much water the tree gets. They can be a little on the tart side. If you find that your oranges are a little on the tart side, either get used to drinking it that way, or make up a little simple syrup, squeeze a little bit in, not too much, and mix it. Simple syrup will dissolve into the liquids a lot better than straight granulated sugar. If you want to do that, then you can. It's not something I recommend doing, but it can be done. Now, I cut, as you can see, it doesn't take long to go through. Okay, so, and there. Now then, I have a big pitcher, but I'm not really going to use it because I don't have oranges here to fill this whole pitcher up. Okay, that dough is probably now well chilled. Okay, so, but I do have a smaller pitcher, which will work. This is only about a quart. And there's a lid for that. If I can find it, it's usually in the way, and I'm usually trying to work around it. And of course, when I want it, I'm not going to be able to find it. That is the case with everything in my life. When I want something, I can't find it. When I don't want something, it's always there and in the road. So I'm probably going to have to get my step stool and see if I can find it. I know I have a lid for that. I've seen it. It's around here somewhere. It's not in my drainer. I don't think it is. Let me check the clean dishes in my dishwasher just to be on the safe side that it's not in the dishwasher. And to empty anything that got tipped over. Because the sprays happen and they typically, you end up with, especially lightweight containers. Obviously, anybody who has a dishwasher knows that. Okay, now then. Okay. Now then, let's see if I can. Okay, you're probably getting a good look at my kilt. Okay, because I'm up high. Don't take offense. Not in commando mode as it is, so you don't have to worry about seeing anything you don't really want to see. And of course, obviously, this is not where I thought it was. And obviously it's going to take a little more searching than I really want to spend today looking for. Oh, great. Okay, so that's going on. Yeah, things just seem to be settling. Why is it that whenever I want something, I can't find it? And when I don't need it, it's right here, always being in the road. Story of my life. Nothing is ever where it's supposed to be. Okay, so get down off my stool, my step stool. Okay, my step ladder. I am only 5'6" in height, so I'm a little on the short side of average height. At least that's what my wife used to tell me. And of course, my response to her was, no, I'm not short. I'm just the perfect height. I don't know if you can really hear me that well, but I tend to be a little on the short side of what they consider to be average for someone in my age group. And then, obviously, I would argue the point and say, no, I'm not short. I'm the perfect height. My feet reach the ground. Okay, and then she'd look at me and tell me that I'm a silly man. So that's where I got the designation. That's sort of a ode to my wife. I'm kind of stuck, and I don't really have a problem with referring to myself as a silly man, because most men are. They may argue the point. They may say, no, I'm not silly. No, not silly at all. But yeah, most of them are silly. And that's everything. Men never really grow up. And quite frankly, to be honest, I don't want to grow up. I want to be a kid. Growing up is overrated. You can get older. Okay? You're going to grow up and you're going to get older no matter what you do. Can't stop that. But you don't have to let it affect you. People say, oh, grow up. You know, you're acting like a kid. Well, yeah, I'm acting like a kid. Because I want to act like a kid. Keeps me young, keeps my mind working, keeps my brain functioning. And, quite frankly, I don't want to be an old fuddy-duddy. Okay, so I got, 2 cups out of those oranges, those few oranges. So, but I have 2 cups. Now then, I need my time is up. On these, look at those. Those are nice. They are really nice. They're good and firm. They're good and cold. Okay. They didn't ship. So now they go into a 400-degree oven, right out of the freezer. And we're going to bake them. I would normally brush them with something, but I may pull them back out and do that, just so you can see the process. It's not really a hard process. It's not a long process. It hasn't been. Now you can see I'm doing this without an oven bit, but this sheet pan, being as thick as it is, holds the temperature really well. When it gets hot, it stays hot for a while, and when it gets cold, it stays cold. Well, so it wasn't in the oven that long, and I hadn't even really started the timer. So now I'll brush it with a little bit of cream. Okay, this will help brown. You can use egg wash. It is basically a whole egg, scrambled, maybe a little bit of water. But since I have this left over from my clotted cream, I'm going to use it. Brush it on the dough, or on the completed scones. Oh, we got a little too much all over everywhere, but that's okay. It will kind of run off a little bit. That's fine. Because I'm not really being super careful to get these coated without making a big mess on the Silpat, but Silpat washes off really easily. Well, I call it a Silpat. That's a proprietary company name. It's a silicone baking sheet. Okay. You could be using parchment paper if you don't have. If you have parchment paper and you don't have the silicone baking mats, use parchment paper. Okay, use what you have on hand. Okay, don't go out and buy a whole lot of stuff that you don't really need right away. Make do with what you have. Use your imagination. Okay, so now I have that. Now I can coat those with a little bit of granulated sugar, or if you have coarse sugar, like if you prefer using raw sugar, then you can sprinkle some raw sugar on. Now, I don't have any raw sugar. All I have is granulated sugar, but since I'm going to be making a orange flavored icing, then to top them with, I'm not going to bother with putting any sugar on them because it's just going to make it too sweet. A little bit of butter. Okay, in the oven, 400 degrees. And dun, 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 dun. Heavy cream, blah blah. Alright, and refrigerate for at least 15 minutes. Preheat the 400 degree oven. Right, that. Change pages. Blah blah blah. Bake for 22 to 25 minutes. Okay, now I'm going to go with 25 minutes only because I know that my oven runs a little low. So I take my timer. Now I have a timer in my microwave. that I could use, but let's see here. Clear. And I will set my timer for 25 minutes. Now granted, it'll be a little longer than that, only because they've been in the oven for a minute or two already. But like I said, since I do know that my oven runs a little on the low side, I'm not going to be overly concerned about whether or not they're in exactly. If your oven runs hot or you're not sure, go to the store, grocery store, wherever. You could probably even find it at a hardware store, but I would check grocery store or Walmart, something like that, and get an oven thermometer. You can get them where you can just set them in there. You can get them where they'll hang off the rack. You want to kind of hang it off a rack, which is probably the best, because then you're not going to get heat transfer from like the bottom of your oven or from the rack. It's going to get the air, which is what you want to know. You want to know how hot the air in your oven is. It's also a good way to test to see how accurate your oven is. If you have a convection oven, then it's probably pretty accurate. But not always, so you want to make sure, you want to double check. It's better to err on the side of a shorter time for something than a longer time, unless you absolutely know for a fact how your oven works. Okay, so that's all those oranges. Now, that whole bag of oranges, I've gotten a little bit of juice for my glaze. I got a whole 2 cups, 16 ounces for drinking, which is nice. If you have any vodka, why not? I'm not a big fan of vodka. As I said, I prefer beer. Typically, stouts is what I like. I found a couple of IPAs that are not bad that my brother-in-law has introduced me to. But for the most part, I stick with a stout, because that's what I like. If you want something hard liquor, and I have a whole bar full of liquor. I have several bottles of rum, flavored rum, and regular rum. 2 bottles of single malt scotch. One is a 12-year-old scotch. One is a 16-year-old scotch. The 16-year-old scotch is really, really smoky. I find that I tend to like that smokiness better. Yeah, some people don't like smoky. If you're getting single malt scotch, look at the bottle. It'll say single malt scotch. If it says blended, I would not. There's only one way to blend this. Or blended whiskey. If it's a single malt, typically it's not blended. Because what they'll do is they'll either blend it with other whiskeys, and then to get the flavor or to get what they want. This is all due to the distiller and how he wants to work it. So, and what they're shooting for. A single malt is typically a single from a single distiller. It is regulated by law in Scotland. So in order for it to be considered Scotch, you need to get it from Scotland. There are several different regions in Scotland distill whiskey. The one thing that people say, well, Scotch. I don't like whiskey, I like Scotch. Well, what I say is, okay, Scotch actually is whiskey, okay? But not all whiskeys are Scotch. So it really depends. And you may say, well, you're being a snob. Well, quite frankly, possibly. If that's the worst of my snobbery, hey, I'm doing good. And I don't have a problem being a bit of a snob when it comes to my Scotch. Now, I've tried, Johnny Walker and all the other blended whiskeys from the U.S. I don't like bourbon. It's a whole different story. It's just a little too harsh, and most whiskeys are just a bit too harsh on me, for me. I like the really smoky Scotch that I have. It's from a distiller, it's Lagavulin. It's really good. You can get their Scotch at Costco, which is where I usually get it. Sometimes it's hard to find. Whoa, as it seems, my cup tends to run over. Time to transfer. Okay, now then, since this is really, really full, I gotta be careful. Because like I said, this only holds about 2 cups, maybe a little more. It should get enough. Only have a little bit more to go. Actually, only one more orange. Finish this one. Oh, okay, that's good. And get all this done so that I have orange juice for a couple of days for breakfast. Also, I can get rid of all these oranges, halves of oranges and stuff, because they pick up my trash on Monday. So they can go off to the trash and get picked up. Got 17 minutes left on the thing, so now I have all of that. Now I'll tip this forward a little bit, get this to drain more, and then I'll start taking this apart and cleaning it up, at least rinsing it off really well in hot water, so that it's all dried out and nasty. I made the mistake one time of just leaving it, and it got really nasty and hard to clean. So I managed to get it cleaned up. I'm using the side of my sink that has a garbage disposal in it, so that anything I put in there will actually go into the garbage disposal. I don't want to leave that running because that water will get way too hot, way too fast. Okay, so now what I want to do is I want to pull that up a little bit. Let's tip this back. And then tip it forward and get all the juice out of the... So that, one, I get as much juice as possible, since I'm wasting it. But also, so I'm not dribbling juice all over my kitchen. Okay, so now normally I would be washing the top, but I'm going to leave this here because I can dip out of that a little easier. Pour this 2 to 3 tablespoons is easier to get out of there than out of a big pitcher. Okay, so this, if I had the top, or could find the top to this, I would put the top on. There is a top here somewhere. It's just I haven't been able to find it yet. So I'm going to quit looking for it, and then lo and behold, it will turn up. That is always the case, for me anyways, I have noticed. Now I need to unplug this. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch plugs around here a little bit. Since I typically only plug one thing in at a time when I'm doing these streams, alternative equipment. Oh, now I got a little bit of orange juice in the drip pan, so I'll pull it out. And you can see that this thing breaks down pretty well, and it's easy to clean. Turn the switch off. It's not really plugged in, so I don't really need to turn the switch off, but just when I'm working with it, assembling it, I don't need to accidentally activate it. It's not really good. There's not sharp blades or anything, but it will startle you. It has me. So, no sense in being startled. This is a clean picture, so I'm going to put it away. If I can find a place for it. There we go. That's better. Now that I have my orange juice for my glaze, they're baking, the scones are baking. 13 minutes to go. So, if you go to England and you get a chance to have high tea or tea, I would recommend that you do so. They will serve you, you'll most likely get your tea, and you can probably order scones. Most likely you will be able to get them. If you order scones, then I say scones. Some people will say scones. Pronunciation is not really that big of an issue. If you say, go to England, you say, I would like some scones with my tea, they're going to know what you want, what you're asking for. So, now I need a small mixing bowl for my glaze. So, like I said, I have several small mixing bowls. There's a small mixing bowl. Okay. I also need confectioner sugar. Now then, I have a container of confectioner sugar hanging around here somewhere. I also have bags and bags of this stuff. I inherited a lot of stuff. Oh, that's rice. Okay. Now, it's a sort of a flat container. Let's see if I can find it. I think. Yeah, that's confectioner sugar. Okay. Or more commonly known as powdered sugar. So. There we go. You will see it. Pure cane box. There we go, box. A pure cane powdered sugar. Now then, I will not get into this unless I have to, which I probably will. So what I want is my confectioner sugar. So I need 1 cup of confectioner sugar. Now that's only a 2/3 cup measurement. So I need to have, there it is, I knew it was here, my dry measure. Now I measured my cranberries, chopped cranberry, in a dry measure cup. You could probably do it in a liquid measure, but don't ever assume that that a 1 cup dry measure cup is equal in liquid volume to 1 cup liquid measure cup. They're not the same. Okay, so that is a potential problem and issue. Oh, I have a plastic spoon right here. I don't need a plastic spoon, but it'll just make it easier. And I do have one. So now this does not say anything about spooned and leveled, but I'm assuming that you want so this is powdered sugar. Now I know what powdered sugar looks like, but that's the test. If you're not sure, is this flour or is this sugar? Usually flour is a little heavier than powdered sugar, but sometimes it may be a little hard to tell if you're inexperienced. There's nothing wrong with being inexperienced. You learn by doing. Now there's a whole pound, and this is essentially a 2-pound bag of the same thing, Great Value powdered sugar. This is a Ralph's brand. This is a Great Value from Walmart. That's fine. Powdered sugar is powdered sugar. If you're particular about your sugar and you want to get like granulated sugar and you like C&H, hey, fine, get C&H sugar. As far as I'm concerned, granulated sugar is granulated sugar as long as it's granulated cane sugar and not beet sugar. A lot of your granulated sugars that are like store brand, which are cheaper, will be, and you look at the package and it'll tell you, and sugar from beets or beet sugar. If you don't mind beet sugar, hey, there's nothing wrong with it. But if I'm going to have sugar, I want cane sugar. So, again, whoops, there's my scissors, where I left them. Now, I typically have some problems with ants. Summertime I have people coming and spraying out around the outside of the house. I don't want them putting stuff and sprays inside the house because I have cats. And not that I don't trust that they won't use the proper stuff, but I would just rather not take a chance. That's just like with plants. If you like having plants around, that's fine. I have some cat grass in the window in the backyard to get pretty much a decent amount of sun. That's fine. Now then, but you have to be careful with certain plants. If you have cats, because cats will chew on plants. If you've noticed that if your cats are outdoor cats, that they will, when you have a grass lawn, which quite frankly in Southern California is just, as far as I'm concerned, just kind of ludicrous. This is sealed, so I don't need to worry about it collecting or drawing ants. Okay. There. So now I have my sugar. And you can use this recipe with any liquid. Don't have to use orange juice, but you want about the same ratio, depending on how much you're making. If you're making cinnamon rolls, you can just use a vanilla instead of orange juice. Use vanilla extract. I could actually use vanilla extract in addition to. So this is what, 2 to 3 tablespoons? Yeah. It also says 30 to 45 millimeters. Milliliters, sorry, not millimeters, milliliters. So there's 1, 2, 3. Okay, so that's 3 tablespoons. I'll go with a little heavier. And then mix it. A little more juice then. Could have probably gotten away with 2. But hey, you know. If I feel that I need more, I can always do more. Okay. Okay, so now that this is my orange glaze. That's pretty much all there is to it. It's not really hard. Okay, cool. Make the glaze with confectioner's sugar, orange juice. Add a little confectioner's sugar to thicken, more juice to thin. Left over ice cream glazed scones. Keep at room temperature for 2 to 3 days, or in refrigerator for 5 days. You can also freeze your scones either before or after baking. If you're going to freeze them, probably don't glaze them, I would assume. Refrigerate overnight. Continue the recipe. Freeze your extra bake. Freeze baked scones before topping with icing. Yeah. Usually freeze in a freezer-friendly bag or container. Leave on the counter for a few hours or overnight in the refrigerator. Warm in the microwave for 30 seconds. Blah, blah. Okay. Or on a baking sheet, 300-degree oven for 10 minutes. I would probably use the microwave for 30 seconds, less likely to over-bake them. And then you can glaze them. If your scone dough is not extremely cold, your scones will tend to spread. I have air conditioning in my house, central air. I also have central heat, so right now it's been very cold at night, so the heat is on. That's why I've been using the freezer and the refrigerator. Now this seems a little bit thin. So I go back to my pantry and I break up the confectioner's sugar. This spoon is not all wet and nasty, so I will stick. It was the one that I used before. So I'm going to add a very heaping spoon of confectioner's sugar. I want this a little thicker. You're not going to glaze these things right after they come out of the oven. You're going to let them sit for a little bit. Now, I'm making the glaze while they're still baking, but like I said, make the glaze, blah, 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 sugar thicken, drizzle over scones. Leftover ice or unglazed scones, blah, 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 blah. And you want, after 25 minutes, or they're baked, golden brown, edges are nicely done, because you're going to want them a little crispy, but you want the centers kind of soft. Okay, so I'm thinking okay, so let me add a little bit more, not quite as much as I did the last time. That should be enough. Like I said, I'm looking for a consistency that will drizzle, but not run all over the place. So it's a experience and an eye kind of thing. You want to make sure when you're doing this that you're using a whisk, because you want this smooth. You don't want lumps of sugar in it. That looks good. That should be okay. So now, Okay, so I will probably most likely be glazing all of these. Ah! So they should be close to being done. Now then, here we are. Now, they didn't spread too much, but they're not quite done. They're getting there. You want them a nice golden brown, if possible, on top. So, these are good-sized scones, so like one scone with breakfast or with tea would probably be more than enough. I want to give it a few more minutes. Let me go here and set this for 3, clear. I'm going to give it 2 minutes. Give it a couple more minutes. Just, you want to, like I said, my oven tends to run low. I don't actually have a thermometer in my oven, so I don't know how low it was running. If I did, I would have readjusted the temperature accordingly. Okay. I probably should go and get one. Okay. I know that I probably need to get one. Where's my... This is my boogie board. This is what I write my shopping lists on. These are nice to have. I got several of them. Okay, so I need an... No. That's not going to work. That's what's nice. Oven. Thermometer. Okay. Abbreviated. I know what it means. Okay. And then that'll stay put. It won't delete until I unlock it. So I can, as I go and I see, oh, I need this, I need that. I'm going to go ahead and pour this little bit back in, oh, not back in, but into the cup that I was drinking out of. Obviously, I did not use the orange juice that I was drinking out of the cup that I was drinking out of. Yeah, that just seems like a little air. I mean, since I'm the only one here, and I'm the only one going to probably be eating these scones, it's probably not a problem, but it's better to show the proper way of doing things as opposed to what will work for me, only because, like I said, there's just me and my cats, so that is, 2 minutes has gone by, and we'll take a quick look at the scones again. Let's give them another 2 minutes. Like it seems like my oven is a bit lower than I thought. So let's give them another 2 minutes. Okay. Now I'm going to have a very late breakfast. So, because I got a couple of eggs left. And so now I have this. I'm going to take the bottom off the potato, as you can see. I have a potato, potato. I cut the bottom off, an edge off. So now I have flat, stable. Well, that is sharp anyway, so I don't really need the stable. But it's best to be careful. Now, oof, boy, that's a really bad. So this potato is not going to get, I'm not going to get a whole lot of this potato, only because of those bad spots. Okay, that happens. Okay, so I'm only going to have, which is fine, so I have scones. I can have a scone with my breakfast, so I don't need a whole lot of potato. Now then, obviously, this potato is raw. It takes a long time to cook these chunks of potato from the raw state if you're in a frying pan. Okay. There's my oven mitt. Pull that up. Okay, that looks good. Okay, so here are my scones. They're looking really nice. They're slightly brown. They're seem better, and this is getting hot. So I'm going to set it on the stove because that's a nice place to put it. Now, once I get ready to start cooking my breakfast, I'm going to have to move it because I'm going to need the burners. But I will move it over here once I get this off. Now, I take a plate. Now, this is a small amount of potato, so. And I like having potato. I don't have any bacon. I always have some bacon. And I'll give this like 2 minutes in the microwave. You could just take the whole potato, punch it, put it in the microwave, set it if your microwave has a setting for baked potato, and do it that way. It will tend to probably overcook the potato a little bit. And I have found that microwaving a potato, a whole potato, usually takes longer than what the settings call for. Excuse me. Let me deal with this for a moment. I'm going to step off camera. Again, cold weather, my nose tends to run. Okay. Okay, so. Now then. Now what I have is, okay, so my potatoes are going. I'm going to go with the scones. Here, now I will glaze these scones on the mat. Kind of let them cool a little bit more. Okay. So my glaze is made, and then I'm going to cook my breakfast. I really wanted to start this whole process a lot sooner than I did. I was up late last night dealing with plumbing issues, so it just worked out that I'm started this a little later. So I could have had my breakfast cooking while the scones were baking. But I don't have a whole lot to do today. I do need to go work on my website. Again, it's complexcooking.xyz, and you'll find all kinds of recipes for all kinds of dishes. I put some in there myself that I've created. I've added some that have been created by others, but they are nonetheless really, really nice recipes. Some of them, a lot of them are international foods, so I'm thinking that I might want to actually do. Well, surprise! There's my tape measure. Of course, like I said, when I need it, I can't find it. When I don't need it, lo and behold, there it is. Okay, now, what I'm going to do, before I forget, is my leftover liquid from my clotted cream is going into the freezer. So I'll put it in the door so it's less likely to tip over. Yes, now, I've been thinking that, quite frankly, a lot of people really like having sushi. Tip that down a little bit. Okay, so let me move my drink and my glaze. I don't know where I'm going to put the glaze, but we'll just leave it there then. Excuse me. And now I need a fork and a knife. So, knife. Okay. I do need to unload and reload my dishwasher. And you don't really need to see me doing it. Okay, so this is hot. A little butter. I will get a little bit of butter in my egg pan. I'll do that right now, and then I don't really need to worry about it. So the butter can go back in the fridge. Now I did do my sous vide thing is right here. And the other day I did want to test it out. So I made up, had a pound of hamburger. It needed to get frozen. So instead of freezing it, I made burger patties. Added some steak seasoning to it. A little Worcestershire sauce. I didn't add any salt and pepper or anything like that, or any onion to it, so I got like about a quarter pound burger patty there. I've got 3 more, and then I vacuum sealed them. I have a vacuum sealer. That's actually what my camera here is sitting on. Plate now dirty. So okay, these are probably at the right temperature to do this. Now, if you have a whisk, it's always nice to just kind of drizzle it if you can. Now, you see, these did spread a bit, and they will. So I could have gotten away with doing 16 smaller ones. I'm going to get some glaze on all of them. Now this glaze could actually be a little thicker. Most of your icings are for that or much thicker. And you can make this as thick as you want it. If you prefer using a piping bag and you're good with that, that's fine. These are going to be fairly heavily glazed, but that's fine because I don't have any use for this glaze after this. So let's just use it all. It's going to run all over the mat. That's fine. These silicone mats are great if you're working with sugar. That you're pouring melted sugar on it or something. I've used them for making peanut brittle. I've made homemade peanut brittle before. I used to do that for Christmas because my maternal grandmother used to make peanut brittle all the time for Christmas for family and friends. When she got too old to do that, then I took over and started doing that until I was not in a position to be able to do that anymore. That's going in. My potatoes are browning, which is what I want. A little bit of salt. That's the nice thing. If you have salt shakers next to your stove, and you tend to shake salt out of the salt shaker or pepper shaker, I would suggest you get a couple of these or some Pyrex bowls or little containers, you know, something like this, or even something like this, or if you really want to have something that's got a lid to it, you can grab, oh, there they are. Some of these things, these are Ziploc things. They're really inexpensive. They work really well. They're recyclable. They come with a nice lid, salt, put a top on it, and you can leave it next to your stove as long as it's not on the stove, because these are plastic. They won't take a whole lot of heat, so they will melt. But if you have a counter like I do, which is right next to my stove, between my stove and my refrigerator, that's a nice place to put that sort of thing, because it's within handy reach of the stove, and you can just, I prefer using my fingers for seasoning. Got more control. That's how you avoid over seasoning. Now, these are looking pretty good. I'm going to, well, they're still a little hard. So I'm going to let them go for a little longer. I'm going to turn the heat down a little bit, just so that they're not going too fast and they burn. Okay, so now then, I'm down to only 2 eggs left, so I'm going to have to go shopping and get some more eggs. I usually buy a large amount of eggs because I do tend to eat a lot of eggs. Probably shouldn't. My doctor probably get pissed at me about eating so many eggs. He says I gotta watch my cholesterol because they keep changing what's considered good and what's considered bad as far as the level of your cholesterol. They keep changing the thing, so now then, I'm going to heat up my thing. I use whole butter, or margarine in this case. It's Country Crock. As I'm not affiliated with them at all, but that's just what I like. So if you have margarine, use it. If you only have butter, use it. If you have clarified butter, that's even better, because that's what we typically use in the restaurant, is clarified butter. It's got a higher smoke point, so it won't burn as quickly. If you're concerned in using whole butter, you can add a little bit of olive oil or vegetable oil to your pan along with your butter. That will raise the smoke point and keep the butter from burning. It's not really the butter that burns, because clarified butter would then burn at the same temperature as whole butter. But it's the milk solids and milk fats that are in the butter. So when you clarify it, all that comes off, is melted. It collects at the top. If you've ever melted butter, a large amount of butter, you've seen it. It's kind of like a white film. You can just skim that off, put it aside, and use it for vegetables or whatever. If you're clarifying butter, I would suggest you clarify sweet butter or unsalted butter. Now, where are my eggs? Ah, there they are. A lot of companies will list their butter, their unsalted butter, as sweet butter. I have tasted it without it being added to anything else. I don't really consider it too sweet. It's not really that I added sugar or anything, but if you're concerned, look at the ingredients. Okay, so, especially in the U.S., they gotta have, ingredients are listed on everything. So you check your ingredients. So a lot of places, companies will say sweet unsalted, it'll say sweet butter, or it'll say unsalted butter. It's all the same, so it doesn't really matter. Then clarify that. You won't be concentrating the salt, and therefore you won't have as many problems with seasoning. So my scones are done. Get rid of those, and time to shut off my oven. So let's do that. Check my potatoes. Okay, I'm almost done with this stream. Oh, it's looking good. Potatoes are working nicely. I'm going to leave them on the low heat. Typically got this burner, front burner here, is a high output. Most stoves will have one burner that's designated as a high output, which means it's or they'll call it a power burner, high output, whatever. It puts out more heat, more BTUs than the other burners. If you have a stove that says high output or power burner, and you want to do stir fry, and you have a wok, then that's the burner you want to use. A wok requires extremely high heat. If you happen to be lucky enough to have a professional grade range in your home, then you have one burner, and some of them will come with a griddle in the middle, or extra burners. If you've got like 6 burners or 5 burners, you got 4 burner, and then one in the middle could be set up for using with a wok, which would be a massively high output, high BTU output burner, because you want your wok really, really hot. You want to cook the food really quickly, because when doing stir fry or using a wok, you want food to cook quickly, and it'll keep it tender. Also keep your vegetables from getting mushy and soggy. Okay, I wish you could have seen that, but flipping eggs is kind of second nature to me. I've been cooking breakfast for quite a while, professionally. So, if you have a problem flipping eggs, a good way to train is you take a saute pan, dry, not heated up, empty. You take a slice of any kind of bread, white bread. Okay, you can even use a heel. You don't eat the heels, you just get rid of them, or you use them for breadcrumbs or whatever. Take a heel from a loaf of bread, put it in the pan, and then practice tossing it. You'll have to toss it pretty hard to get the bread to flip, but you'll get the motion, you'll get the feel for it. Typically you won't flip your eggs that hard because you'll break them. And then it's just a matter of practice. Okay, everything's done, ready to be consumed. So, a plate. Excuse me. I don't know why I'm so... Don't think I'm actually been exposed to anything. I'm keeping to myself and staying at home, and when I go out, I always have a mask on. So I think that's just the normal runny crap that I get every winter. So now I have my breakfast. Have scones. Okay, when you go to high tea in England, you will get scones, you will get clotted cream, and you will get a little bowl of strawberry jam, either freshly made or they buy it. You know, you can get really good quality strawberry jam nowadays, so it's not something that you actually have to go to the big effort of but typically this is they'll serve it on a plate. It'll be a doily. You'll have your scone, you'll have your clotted cream in a container, and you'll have a small container and your jam. If you ask for butter, they'll probably give it to you, but they might look at you a little funny. Try the clotted cream. It's really good. I recommend it highly. And I showed you how to make it. It is a long process to make clotted cream, but in my opinion, it's well worth it. Okay, this is my clotted cream that I made. You use it like you would just use butter. Okay, so what I need is a small container. Okay, I have a small container here. I don't really want to use that container, so I'll use this container. And I will take a spoon, if I can find a spoon that's been totally totally dirty. So I'm up to get a, well that one's not bad because it just had flour on it, so it should be okay. Maybe some, now you can see how thick this stuff is. So that's probably enough. I want a little more because I really like this. And I blame my sister and her husband for introducing me to clotted cream simply because I can't. Okay, so it's there. I have my strawberry jam, Smuckers. Look at this. If you don't like high fructose corn syrup in your jam, go for one. Look at the label. Go for ones that don't have it. Again, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this and these little canning jars. These are wonderful. I love these things. I can now take this and I need a long iced teaspoon is what I need. And I do have some. Find them. Chopsticks, but hey, you know. There we are. Just a matter of knowing where things are. And what I'll do is I'll take this all out of this jar because it's really hard to get into when it's this low. So I have my strawberry jam. I have my clotted cream. Now I could put the clotted cream into a similar container, which I probably will do, and then freeze some of it. Like I said, you can freeze it. It freezes very well, holds up well, and will last. Instead of a few days or a week, it will last quite a while. And then there's no sense in wasting that jam. Oops. Would help if I had the right lid. Oopsie. Okay, so there's my jam, my thing. This plate is really not big enough for my scone. As well, let's see what I got in here. don't want two big plates. This is a slightly bigger plate. Okay, that'll work. And since this really didn't have anything on it, other than the containers, there we go. So that works a little better. So that's my jam. I will just leave the cover for that off. And now I can close that up. So it's out of the way because that thing open is just right in the walkway. And it's a pain in the butt. Okay, so what I want is one of these scones. Okay. There's my nice orange glazed cranberry and orange scone. The glaze is a little soft still on the side. Now you can depending on how flaky and crumbly this is. Oh, look at that. That's really nice. That's very nice. It's nicely done. It's not over-baked. It's still pretty moist. And there's no sense in wasting those crumbs. Okay, so now there's no real traditional way to do this other than just spreading it. If it breaks up a little bit and gets a little crumbly, that's fine. A lot of your scones that you'll get in England will be really crumbly like this. It's kind of the way they like them. This clotted cream is still really, really cold, so it's spreading a little difficult. Being a little difficult, but not bad. Pardon me licking my fingers. Really shouldn't be doing that, but I do. And since it's just me and some strawberry jam. Now then, you can put the jam down first and then, but I found that if the clotted cream is really, really cold, putting the jam down first is just asking for problems. So there we go. We have my scones, cranberry orange scones with clotted cream and strawberry jam. My eggs, which are probably over medium, and my fried potatoes. You can do what is normally referred to as a full English breakfast, which includes sausages, black pudding. We'll go into what black pudding is in a later date. Eggs, a fried piece of bread. Typically they don't do hash browns. I don't believe. I do sliced tomatoes that have been lightly grilled. Beans. They do beans. But you can probably get hash browns. But I've never tasted black pudding. I really want to, but I haven't been able to find anybody that can get it for me. And it's really hard to import. There are a lot of restrictions on it. That's why I opted to go with making my clotted cream as opposed to trying to find it and buy it. I know where there is a English grocers. Stuff there is very expensive, but it's all imported from England. I'm not certain that I can get black pudding there. I'm also interested in trying out haggis. I can order it in a can online. I'm not really sure that I really want to do that. The next time I get a chance to go to a Highland Games, I may try it. Usually they have somebody there that makes it or has it. But there again, these are things that would be nice to try out. I'm interested in trying new things and seeing what it is, how it tastes, and see what I can do to come up with. I already have an idea on haggis, because typically it's cooked in a sheep's stomach. Well, you can't really get sheep's stomach, and it's a lot of the internal organs, liver, kidneys, lungs, they're all chopped up, mixed with oats, put in the sheep's stomach, and then it's boiled. And then once it's done cooking, being boiled, then it's kind of hung up to dry, set. I'm not really sure of the procedure. I have a cookbook from Edinburgh, which has a recipe for it. Here again, that's from England, from Scotland. So the measurements are metric or imperial, so I'm not really sure how that works. But I'm just under 3 hours, probably a little over 3 hours. I had some technical difficulties. But I think I'm going to sit down and have my breakfast. You don't need to stand there or sit there and watch. And again, no viewers. I would much greatly welcome anyone who wanted to view this. It'll be on my sites, I'm hoping. And I forgot to switch over to multi-stream. I wish this thing would just... It'll be on Twitch, I'm pretty sure. In fact, I'm almost 100% certain because it's listed on Twitch. But it doesn't seem like it's set, and it's a little late to switch over to multi-stream. I gotta find a way to set this up so that it stays on multi-stream. So, like I said, if it only ends up on Twitch, I'm sure I can figure a way to transfer it across to my other sites. But like I said, should go directly to my website. If it doesn't, I'll get it there, or I'll get it onto my YouTube channel. So I also have a Discord. I'm on Discord. You can direct message me through Discord. It's Dragon42. I'm pretty sure that's might be Dragon _ 42. Okay, so it would be Dragon _ space and then the number 42.